Open Slide still is not an AI slide generator. What changed is that it no longer feels fair to dismiss it as only a clever React slide runtime. This current build already opens a real authored deck, fills the screen cleanly, and plays like a presentation system instead of a static code demo. That distinction matters because TechWealth already covered Open Slide once before. On May 31st, 2026, the channel published I Built Slides with Claude Code. This new piece is an update review, not a first review, and the evidence bar is different. The proof here has to come from the current product, not from that older upload. The source boundary is still important. Open Slides docs describe a slide framework built for agents. You describe the deck, the coding agent writes the React, and Open Slide handles the fixed canvas, scaling, navigation, hot reload, present mode, and export. So the honest framing is not prompt to polish slideshow. It is code-first slides with an increasingly real editor loop around them. And the current surface is broader than what that May video showed. The official demo gallery now presents 19 slides, 5 themes, and version 1.19.1. That is the first sign this is becoming more than one neat runtime trick. It now looks like a product with a growing gallery, multiple themes, and a stronger sense of presentation as a system. One narrow official claim does deserve official footage. Iweiho's morph clip proves that Open Slide can drive a polished transition concept. But that clip only proves the morph claim it directly shows. For everything else in this review, I want current local runtime proof, current local build proof, or source-backed qualification if I could not exercise it end-to-end. The local template story is also more nuanced than a single version number. The published CLI package is currently 1.4.1. In the scaffold I generated for this review, the template range still referenced OpenSlide core 1.17.1, while the installed lock file actually resolved the current core to 1.19.1. That difference is small, but it matters if you want the update review to stay technically honest. The scaffold itself already signals the intended workflow. This is not just a blank slides folder. The generated workspace includes agent skills, a project structure that expects authored slide source, and a deck tree that looks designed for people who want an LLM or coding agent to work directly against real files. More important, the current scaffold built cleanly in this hands-on pass. The production build finished with 2,416 modules transformed, then wrote the output under dist. That matters because a lot of slide tooling looks promising until the moment you ask it to behave like something you could actually ship or preview outside the happy path. The built preview also checked out. I could open a real deep link for Deck A from the build output, not only from the dev server. That is one of the subtle shifts that makes Open Slide feel more like a presentation system now. There is a difference between a runtime that renders while you are authoring and one that keeps its shape once you move into built output. Deck A is where the current agent native loop becomes clearer. In source, the deck contains explicit steps and a morph element contract. In the runtime, those steps reveal content progressively instead of dumping every layer at once. That is a better fit for technical explainers because the pacing lives in the authored deck, not in post-production alone. The local morph proof is stronger than the old launch impression. In this current runtime, the authored object really moves from one page into the next. That does not turn Open Slide into Keynote. It does mean the presentation grammar is maturing past static pages, and that is the first time the product starts feeling editor-adjacent instead of runtime only. The editor claim becomes credible when selection works precisely. In this hands-on pass, selecting the tested title in the inspector updated the exact runtime object I expected. I am not claiming a fully proven comment workflow because I did not exercise that path end-to-end. But inspector selection is enough to say this is now a real source to runtime to editor loop, not just a live player with source files behind it. A second deck matters here because I do not want this verdict resting on one hero example. Deck B uses a different technical explainer structure and still works cleanly in the current runtime. That makes the review less about one nice demo and more about whether Open Slide can carry multiple authored storytelling patterns for code-first teams. Export is where the boundaries need exact language. The fully exercised path in this review is HTML. I exported the deck, opened the bundle outside the dev server, and verified that the artifact still carried the presentation. That is current proof. PDF and PPTX need more careful wording. Here is the accurate split. The current product and source clearly expose an image-backed PPTX path. Editable PPTX is not ready yet. The current source strings also state that PDF export is not supported on Safari and should be run in a Chromium-based browser instead. So if you need a truly editable PowerPoint workflow today, Open Slide is not there yet. The repo validation story also needs precision. The end-to-end result was 71 passed plus 1 setup timeout, then the isolated build spec passed all 6 on rerun. That does not prove a bug-free product. It does support the narrower conclusion that the current project is not hand-waving its way through basic build and interaction confidence. So who should use Open Slide 1.19 right now? If your team is comfortable with React, wants an agent to author slides against real source, and cares about present mode, repeatable builds, and HTML output, this is now a serious tool to test. If you want prompt-only deck generation, template-first polish, or editable PowerPoint as the main output, this is still the wrong category of product. That is why my verdict is sharper than the launch hype and better than a dismissal. Open Slide still is not an AI slide generator. But as of August 24, 2026, it has clearly crossed into real editor territory for code-first presentation workflows. The next step I would watch is simple. Keep tightening the editor loop, keep the export story honest, and close the editable PPTX gap.